welcome back. Fade to Black. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? On the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. JChurchRadio. Very simple. Come and hang out with us. We got the chat rooms all jumping off. You can go hang out there if 140 characters is holding you back. You can go do that. Email is Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Barry Littleton. And I had the honor and the privilege of hanging out with Barry this weekend up at ECETI. And that right there is magic in itself, and that's good enough. But I got to listen to Barry's presentation, and it left me at moments stunned, happy. I laughed. I didn't cry. No, I didn't do that. I might have shed a little bit of a tear. But his story floored me. And it wasn't as much the story as it was Barry's personality. Dude is alive. He is bright. He is all of that. He is truly enlightened. So enjoy the conversation tonight. But it started with his childhood experiences that included encountering disincarnated people, strange playmates. We're going to talk about that tonight. The kid on the bike. And awakening from sleep, not in his bedroom or his house when he was a kid. And he had all of these encounters, but he couldn't figure things out. But then at the age of 18, when he was asking for things to become more physical, they did. And that resulted in 4 separate encounters that totaled about 18 hours of missing time. Now, we're going to go into full detail tonight because I know you have questions already, like I did. But the combined experiences of missing time and conscious encounters and past life memories led him to do a vast amount of research in an attempt to verify and explain what was going on. And he's physically been on several different craft, and his details of this I've never heard in the past, and it's extraordinary. And his book that's coming out will have quite a few illustrations of exactly what he saw on the inside of these different types of crafts and the different types of beings that he met, hung out with, questioned, and encountered. He has studied, researched, and practiced several aspects of the spiritual and metaphysical and paranormal phenomenons, but he does have degrees in psychology, sociology, and ethnic studies, all from Wichita State University. And for the last 2 decades, he's been involved in administration for at-risk youth, including cognitive behavioral modification and managing aggressive behavior. And he's also on an options stock trader. Now, in late 2010, we're going to talk about this. He got in a car accident, and it was bad. And he had an NDE on the way to the hospital. He suffered 4 catastrophic and traumatic brain injuries. We'll go through that tonight as well. And because of the accident, he decided to come out and share his contact experiences with the world. Tonight, we're going to go over his entire life, the life of Barry, from first contact through right here to the present day. And I would like to welcome, for the first time at Fade to Black, Barry Littleton. Barry, good evening, my friend.
Hello, Jimmy. How you doing?
Hey, man.
Thank you very much for such a gracious invitation. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Barry. Thank you. And now, before we get started here, you get the first-time guest disclaimer, which I love doing, which means for our audience, Barry, this is the other cool thing. When I do the first-time guest disclaimer, that means probably our audience is getting to listen to somebody for the first time that hasn't been out there. And it's what we try to do. That's why we call this the Game Changer Network. You know, we're out here trying to change that game, trying to shift that paradigm. And we do that from, hearing from people that nobody has heard from before. And I want to thank you for that. Now, this is the disclaimer. This is just you and I sitting on my couch talking as friends. Where we start, we start. Where we end. But we're going to end as friends. Are you ready to go?
Yes, my friend.
All right. Now, Barry, okay, look, I'm going to start here. Our audience, the UFO community, the conspiracy community, right? This community is largely, not totally, but largely white. We're white. It's a white community. And right now, I know that the audience is saying to themselves, hey, check it out. Jimmy's got a black guy on the show tonight. Check this out. And probably somebody is yelling to their wife or their husband in the house, honey, come here. Jimmy's got a black guy on the show tonight. He's a contactee. And for them, this is great. It is. It is absolutely fantastical. But why, Barry, do I even have to say that? Why is it that because encounters and contacts and seeing something strange in the sky is not a white phenomenon? We all see it. Do you feel alone out there? And am I completely off my rocker by stating what I think is the obvious right now?
Well, I really commend you, because our first communication was you actually stood up and asked me that, and I mentioned it a few times during my presentation. I will say that not seeing other melanin-dominant black individuals or ethnic individuals coming forward was very disturbing for me in terms of like what I saw in the media. What I saw in the media was completely very much under the white supremacist type of power structure. And when I say that, I mean that none of the beings that I was seeing, I'm seeing on any of the media they look like Fabio and Christy Brinkley. Basically, all the Pleiadians look that way, or maybe Kevin Sorbo as Hercules.
Right.
And I don't mean any disrespect to those Nordics that look that way, okay? But there's more beings out there.
Or Kevin Sorbo, for that matter.
So that was just one thing that was very kind of, that's funny. It was very kind of deterring for me at one point. But also the next thing was to seeing actually other contactees that looked like me and what they were going through. And when I looked into that in modern ufology, the only thing I found was Betty and Barney Hill, and that wasn't the best encounter. So I started thinking, was my mind wiped and things like that.
Right.
I think we're dealing with also a cultural difference in terms of my culture. It's not really that cool to talk about encounters.
Why
we really discuss?
Sure. Why is that though? That's the thing. I mean, I understand that we don't see it happen, but the question is why.
I'm thinking it's part of the disconnect overall with these encounters altogether. And now that I've been talking to more people, and so many people have reached out to me, usually through social media, that I'm getting a good feel for it. And it is that just in general there is a disconnect when a married couple tells me that they've been having encounters for 20 years, but they never told their husband or spouse. That's a problem. I mean, that's a huge part of who you are and your life, but you're not sharing that. So I think that transitions very easily into the cultural lines, because we're not seeing those type of representations. There's very little communication, cross-communication between the cultures, at least here in America, concerning contact. I've seen it, you've seen it, and it's a problem that needs to be solved, because I'm learning a lot more the more people I talk to. So that's been a blessing. Yeah,
and one of our producers here, Hilton J. Palm, who I've known for years, he's black, raised in Watts, South Central, right here in Los Angeles his whole life. His family's wonderful and very cool dude, but he's black. And I asked him, I went straight at him, Barry. I'm like, dude, what, if you saw, first off, I said, have you ever seen a UFO? And he goes, nope. And I said, really? And he said, even if I had, I wouldn't tell you. I said, what? And I said, what about, would you guys share it with it? No, man, no. And I said, why? And he said, Jimmy, it's just us. There's a few things that we just keep to ourselves, and maybe it's a masculine thing, or maybe it's other things. I don't know what it is, but I'm just telling you right now, I wouldn't admit to it, and nobody else would. And it kind of floored me. It kind of made sense in a way. I mean, I kind of get it, but it floored me that he would not bend on it. He didn't say like, well, maybe I would say no. He's like, no. And I just found that fascinating. And can you imagine the way that it kind of feels like it is today in 2017? Imagine what Betty and Barney Hill were going through as that type of couple back then. That was strenuous enough on a relationship, right? And
Yes.
and then to have that happen, I can only think what was going through Barney's mind nearly every single day. It had to make life really difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's that's something that I'm hoping is really changing, and I'm seeing it change, but it's not changing enough, and that's just a matter of communication. The internet and things like it's starting to change it, but it's not rapid enough. We don't have a lot of time to waste on that. We're dealing with intergalactic species, but yet we can't even get along on this planet.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, now, and everything is fine with us. It's all good, man. This community is what it is. And we welcome you, and I know that it's difficult for anybody to come out of the closet. We've been talking about that all weekend, and you're here, and so let's move on. I want to go back to your childhood when things started to first happen for you. It happened very young, but what was your household like? Your mom, your dad, your family. What was going on there? Was it cool?
Yeah, it was very cool. I have a number of siblings that are a great deal older than me, up to almost 20 years older than me, so I was kind of behind in that way. But my father's pretty well known for his basketball skills when he was younger, and my mother was a very good mother. So in that way, I've had a very normal, very blessed life. But odd things were happening to me. From being born, from birth, I was aware of certain things. I also had knowledge of past life memories. They were very kind of clear, fragmented, but yet clear. And also I seemed to know some things about science that there was no explanation for, that kind of used to trip my parents out a little bit. And then things started progressing forward from there and having very odd experiences.
And strict, religious, open, what were your parents like?
No, or that with any conformed religion. Didn't come up in the church or anything like that. My parents were raised Christian, but they didn't force that upon us really, or make us conform to that religion. So in that way, I was open to explore my spirituality, which I can see now was definitely a blessing, considering the things I was to witness and perceive.
What part of the country? What city?
Middle of the country, Kansas. Wichita.
Wichita, Kansas. Wichita State.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I went to school, actually. My father was a basketball player there, 51 to 55, all-time leading scorer. So
is that right? Oh,
yeah.
Really?
He would have been one of the few to go into the NBA, but he chose not to do that because there were only 4 other NBA black players at that time. So, in fact, it was called something slightly different then, but far before my day.
And so for you, oh man, I just got a weird feedback. That was trippy.
I heard that.
Yeah, I'm hearing it again. Wow, that's weird, man.
Wow.
Okay, I'm going to ignore that. I may have to reset the line, but that sounded like somebody broke in on the line. Okay, now it's gone.
I'm out at the Assetti Ranch here, so
man.
very odd things happen out here. I'm on the landline for them, so
that was weird. Okay.
Yeah.
So the normal things growing up, though: bikes, friends, staying out all night, walking the neighborhood, that normal kind of existence in the Midwest.
Yeah, well, as my friend said just before I came up here, he said, "Man, your parents were strict. You couldn't do nothing hardly." I wasn't allowed to be out all night.
And when you're living this kind of Midwest lifestyle, which I did growing up, and it's a wonderful way to grow up, But when did you start leaving, finding yourself not in your bedroom? How old were you when this happened?
It started happening around the age of 5, 6, 7. It started getting more intense. I would wake up at night and just not be in my bed. Sometimes I would be in another school. And when I say wake up, because I don't sleep well anyway, and you wake up somewhere else, you know it. And this place was it was like a lot of people call them mystery schools. I would say that it was a room, kind of that was a darkened room, and there are several things on a table that were like water, a bowl of water, a feather, and these spherical balls, like these gyro balls. And the thing you had to do was kind of move the water, spin the water with your mind. But first thing is move the feather. Then you have to spin the water. Then you can start manipulating these spheres telekinetically. And I got very good at doing it there, but when I go to school, I couldn't do it at my normal school during the day. But yet I was feeling like I hadn't been asleep, and I was tired as all get out. But I couldn't prove that this was happening to me at all, but it was very odd, Or coming away, there was a field, like a polo field for cows behind kind of where we stayed.
Right.
And once or twice, I kind of wake up and I'm like out in the middle of this field, and then suddenly I kind of fall back asleep and I come back and I'm back in my bed. But these are physical encounters, physical things that were happening. And in this room, mind you, I never saw a teacher, but I was being told to do things telepathically.
So when you say school, you were doing something at night, right? You're going away to this school, and I want you to, was this like an astral projection, or do you think you were physically leaving your bedroom and going to this other place to learn how to stir water with your mind, and then you woke up in the morning back in your room where you went to the elementary school down the street? Am I understanding you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was physical, much more on the physical, because I didn't, normally when I'm one of those people, when I go to sleep, I'm kind of out there, I'm kind of down.
Right.
So these are times you're waking up, and it's something that would, stop your perception, so to say, stop your world.
Now, in this other, yeah, right, totally. In this other school, could you smell? Was there temperature? I mean, you were there physically, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. It seemed like kind of just a cold. I would almost call it like a hospital room in some ways, because it was dark, but it was kind of disinfected. And something that I've smelled when I smell several times, which went into my adult onset experiences, which are much more vivid,
right.
Which is a smell of like Windex or ammonia. That kind of a smell. A lot of those rooms seem to have that smell, And I guess it's maybe part of the decontamination project, or part of what they're doing. I'm not sure. I've always smelled that in some of the ships. As a matter of fact, there's even a deeper mist that kind of tends to make it choke you out and asphyxiate you a little bit. It's rather uncomfortable to endure physically.
Could you see other students? Could you see other kids?
One time, the last time I was there. I was in another room, and I'm being told telepathically to show, and these children were a little younger than me.
Right.
And I've been asked about that a little. They looked like humans to me. They didn't look like exactly hybrids. They looked like human students, just like at my other school. But I was being asked to show them, like, moving the spheres. And I said no, because I couldn't do it at my school here. You know what I mean? And during the day, I couldn't do the school there. I was sitting there hard trying to move a feather or a pencil, and I couldn't do it. But I could do it in this other school. And that was frustrating, so I didn't want to do it anymore. And I told them, no, I wouldn't show the other students. And I don't ever recall being invited back there.
Yeah, you got detention. Yeah. That's funny. So do you think that's why you didn't go back, is because you had a little bit of dissension there? Do you think that was it, why you didn't go back? Or do you think you completed the course and that you were able to do the things that they showed you?
I think I completed the course, but the modality of contact it advanced to a different way. It changed right about that time that I can explain to you.
What did you take from the school? Now, you couldn't move the balls or the water in real life, but were there other things that you could do?
Yeah, telepathy. I was a pretty strong telepath, and I assumed that most other people could do it. And I didn't find out till I got a little older, probably around 8 or 9, that, people can't do it. most people can't, and we all have that capability, but it seemed like they don't. And basically reading the things off people, the thing that come out the front of their energy field,
right,
and the things that are on the surface of their mind,
right,
they can be interpreted quite a bit, especially if you can do things like read people's expressions and body language. It gets enhanced, and each time I kind of came out of that with that ability even more. It seemed to intensify it. And I would say there's something about that environment seemed to make the ability stronger, if that makes sense.
Did you read your mom's mind? Your dad, your brothers, your sisters? Did you mess with people?
No, not really. I didn't do that till I got a little bit older and started doing that in the dating scene, and that got me in trouble. So no.
No, that's great. Now, did you meet at the schools, or at this point in your life too as well? Did you the beings that you were interfacing with telepathically? Did you meet anybody face to face at this point?
Okay, yeah. When I was 7, I met the first one, and at that time he had. This is gonna sound odd, but I used to. When my brother would wash his car, or anybody would wash their car, down our street would be it looked like a river, the way the water would go down the curb. And it was extremely important to me to build a mud dam to stop that water from flooding the entire world. It's one of those things that, a kid does. And there was I had several, playmates, kids my age in the neighborhood. We all went to school together. But this kid would show up every now and again, and he'd play with me. So I assumed he was a kid. But yet when he didn't go to my school, and there's a couple of schools in the neighborhood there. I said, well, you go to, like Price Harris over there, some Price. And he's like, no, I don't go there either. I'm here just visiting family. And yet I didn't notice that, that he's telepathic. So I thought that some of us could do it too. And when you look on TV, some of those people could do it on TV, so that must be real, right?
Right.
The old Tomorrow people that gave me some console, actually.
Yes.
But anyway, he had showed up several times, and I didn't, conveniently, when I was pretty well supervised, but when somebody would come back outside, he would have to leave. But I know that probably everyone saw him at least once. He didn't maybe interact, but he had to get on his bike and he'd ride off. And he had a bike that was back in the late 70s. It was a Schwinn that had the big S on the seat. It wasn't a cool bike, so it kind of stood out, But his name was Xandar.
His name was Xandar. Now,
when he would in my mind, it sounded kind of like Yandar, but he put a Z on it.
Right. And we have we have an illustration of Xandar that we are going to put up now. Rita, go ahead and put that up in Twitter. I'm going to do the same thing. Let's see if I'm going to do this in real time from here. And let's see if Rita beats me. She's down in her studio. Okay. Did you ever see at this point, now we've got 2 minutes before the break, did you ever see his face? Did you know what he looked like? And if you did, would you have freaked out at that age?
He appeared to just be kind of another kid to me. And I think it says something to how they can project certain images into your mind to make sure you stay calm.
Right.
And and when I saw him later, it was actually on a ship, but his form then and what he was wearing was different. And it's enough to where I had to get older to put it together as the same individual, because he didn't seem the same on the ship. He seemed much more ancient and not someone I was just playing with. So it kind of goes into why beings like this come to certain ones of us.
Right. And was he shape-shifting, or was he covering his face? Did he have a mask on, a Halloween mask? I mean, how was he able to? I mean, it didn't bother you.
Well, as an adult, I can tell you he had he usually would have on a hat and these sunglasses, and a lot of times he would have on a backpack sometimes, and that's how he appeared. But I mean, he looked a little odd, like somebody who was trying to be cool that really doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, kind of like
a lot.
kind of like me. I get that. Well, let's take a break here, because this is a really great spot to take the break, because things really really start to take off here as well. So we'll break here, and then when we come back, we'll pick up with Xandar, and then we'll jump to when you turn 18 and things really, really start to get a little bit serious for Barry Littleton. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. It's going to be a great conversation tonight, everybody. Buckle up, get ready. It's Barry. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back. Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Barry Littleton. He's here to talk about his life of contact, both physical and it's an amazing story, absolutely amazing story. And so where we left off, Barry, we were talking about Xandar, and I want to continue there, but also around this time, and we're going to jump ahead and then come back to where we are. Later, you saw a craft. And your mom sees, I think it was an Omni magazine or something, and she sees a flying saucer. And your mom comes up and says to you, that's like the flying saucer that we saw. And then she relates to you this experience. I want you to share that with us because it goes back into the timeline of where we are now with Xandar, right, when you were a kid. Tell us about that, and do you now recall the time that you saw it with your mom when you were young?
Mm-hmm. Yes, boy, I gotta give you credit. You're really listening.
I listen to every word, man.
Yeah, actually, what happened was this is at the age of 7. Okay, I see a UFO with my mother. And it was at Eastgate Mall, but where she was actually taking me for my birthday. I had gotten one of those, a Stretch Armstrong, and it like started leaking the first time you start stretching it. So she was taking me to get another one, and we see this craft. All right, and when I got older, I apparently I just kind of forgot this. Of all the contact I had, I forgot seeing my first craft. Now I'm about the age of in my late 20s, early 30s by this point, and my mother actually I went over to have lunch, and I was looking at one of my Omni magazines, which has long since been discontinued. She's going to throw them out. And I was looking at one of a page of all these different UFOs on there, and she's walking by. She pointed at it. She goes, "Oh, that one looks like the one we saw." And I looked back at her, and I said, "What?" I couldn't seem to remember it. And she looks at me. She says, "Oh, Mr. Star Trek guy, with your great memory, you can't remember the first UFO you saw?"
Right.
And it was so odd. And so I wound up asking my brother. My brother, he just was moving out around that time. And my youngest brother to me, he's 12 years older than me. I asked him, I said, "Mitch, do you remember anything about that?" He said, "Yeah, you saw it." He said, "You were going on and on about it, just like Mom was." And I couldn't remember that.
And describe the craft.
Mm-hmm. When she got finished getting a little irritated at me for asking me questions, the craft itself appeared to have, it was a saucer, but appeared to have windows on it, separated by these odd-looking metal grates.
Right.
And on my YouTube channel, I've got pictures of all that. But it was, I'd say maybe 100, 150 feet, about 100 feet probably wide, 150 feet. And it had a type of a small hum it was generating.
And and again, I don't want to feel like I'm jumping ahead. I don't want to do the timeline shift here, but there were windows on the side of this craft that later were also revealed to you, and you were able to see. But the windows you describe as possibly not windows, but maybe a representation of a timeline that they were looking at. But you could also see yourself down on the street, and you don't remember yourself. I want the audience to understand this is a heavy concept. This blew my mind, Barry, when you presented it like this. You could see yourself on the street from above, but your version of you on the street don't remember the craft or looking, right? You can only have one memory at a time, I guess, is what I got out of it, right? Mm-hmm. Am I explaining myself correctly?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was. immediately I could barely remember it. When she started triggering me, then I could get a feel for it.
Right.
So I had to find out why I was missing that time. And my adult encounters involved missing time. And it's one thing if you're delusional or have a chemical imbalance in your brain. It's another if somebody else is with you and they see these ships and they're missing 4 hours each time too. That changes things. But for that reason, I seek hypnotic regression because I knew that somehow or another they were involved, and that frequency, that speed, that vibration that a lot of these beings have makes the retention of memory from the event horizon itself difficult.
Yeah, very interesting. So from the age of 7, 8, 9, all the way to 18, were you having continuous contact through that period too as well before it started to go physical?
No. It stopped in the age I was about 12, maybe about 12 to about 18. I had one encounter about 16 with this engine, and that was it. My encounters had stopped, and it came. The two that maybe lead you up to that is that this ship. Something happened after we had seen this ship. Probably several months later. My mother was an antique collector, and which is very boring for a kid. But we went to a shop, and the shop had a lot of books in it, and also some rocks. And at that time, I was watching a TV show called Under the Mountain that was on Nickelodeon, or on Channel 8 or Nickelodeon, one of them. Anyway, but there was a rock that attracted me in this vase, and a gentleman stepped out from behind the counter. And I thought he worked there then, but I see maybe he didn't. He just knew them, and he started asking me questions like, do you think igneous rocks are metamorphic by nature? You wouldn't ask a 7-year-old kid that unless you knew they were studying that type of science.
Right.
Yeah, and come to find out later that this gentleman that gave me this rock, he tells me, he said I should dream with it. It's a special rock, and he gives it to me. The condition is that I have to join for free, of course, the Kansas Gem and Mineral Society, which is very, very odd. I remember leaving that store, and my mother's like, gosh, because he was standing right there. She goes, that man was awful interested in you. And as I come as an adult to find out, this gentleman was also on that craft that I saw that day with the windows.
Right.
To get to the windows, I'm sorry, you asked that and I didn't address it right. Windows. When I actually underwent the regression, I see this craft once, and I see like this type of wall, and I'm in a room with these three. For all the trash I had talked about Fabio, I'm standing in the three Nordic gentlemen though.
Three Fabios.
I got to eat a little crow on that one.
Yeah, three Fabios. What's interesting here, because of the, you're getting the rock from this guy, and then later, do you think it was the same guy that was in the rock that was in the ship, or that they just all looked like Fabio?
He didn't look as much like Fabio. His hair was kind of grayish, but I'll tell you this much: he did have a mullet, like a David Hasselhoff in Knight Rider. He kind of had they had a haircut like that. The gentleman on the ship with him looked even more like him than I would my brothers. They looked like almost fraternal or something. It was very odd. They didn't ever speak. He's the only one that spoke, and he went by the name Alex, capital A-L, then apostrophe L-E-X, 2 L's. And but I couldn't put that together that this was happening till I got older, and that's lead me to kind of call beings like him charters that come about every 7 years, and I think they keep charts on lifetime experiencers. That's what I think happens, and they have a humanoid form, but the humans are more than just biology in that way.
Now, going back before we jump to 18. Were there any other kids in your neighborhood growing up that were also contactees? Or was it just you? And so that's one. And the second one, your friends, did anybody see Xandar and make a comment about him hanging out with you?
Nobody else is a contactee to my knowledge. And now that I've kind of spoke out a little bit, I'm sure one of my old friends would have told me by now.
Right.
But only on one occasion, the last time I had seen him, actually, like physically in the third dimension, like here, I was actually, my mother was in a conference, and so I had to stay late on the playground. There's a few of us that were out there, and I mean, these kids were going to push me off the slide when I got up there, and he stopped them. Xandar stopped him. So he was physical. He stopped him, and then he showed me something. He says, "I want to show you something." And he's got on his backpack that time, and he runs. He like runs and jumps. And before he jumps, the only way I can describe this to you, if you've ever seen a ladybug before they take flight, they have these two black wings that come out and cross underneath the hard shell.
Right.
Like that was underneath his backpack, and he jumped about probably 12 feet, I'd say.
Wow.
And he said, "What do you think about that?" And I started yelling at him, saying, "I think you're an insect or a bug. Go away." And so he actually left in that way, and I didn't see him again till probably about 2 years later.
Now, let's go to 18. We have a lot to discuss here now. When things started to kick off, one of the aspects of your contact, which I find amazing, is that you have a gift for detail on not only the beings themselves, but the craft and what you were exposed to and how you are able to just remember everything because it was physical. And I think it's extraordinary, and we're going to spend a lot of time on that, a lot of detail there. You know, this is the other thing with our audience, or with anyone. It's that when they want to know, right? They want to be able to paint that picture of what you were seeing and who you were encountering and what you were talking about and what the craft was like and what did it look. But and with you, you're able to retain all of that and be very descriptive, and it's just an amazing thing to listen to you present it. So let's get into that. And the next experience, you had 4 separate encounters at the age of 18. Which one happened first?
Okay, all right. That was actually I was with the lady I was dating at that time. And we were going out into the country, just kind of hang out. It was like our first year in college, and we're going out there to practice some Kundalini techniques, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, those old country you park out there kind of deals. But
right.
Anyway, we got out there and we started meditating around this pond in the car, and it was one of those things that was a really, really deep meditation. It just kind of was like an inward revolution, and then I opened up my eyes. And a ship materializes over this pond. It like flashes in, and it's got on top of it what is called a directional emitter. That's like this light that's going circular. And every time it comes around towards me, it's tooting me in like a radio station. And I had asked my ex at that time. I said, "Hey, can you see this thing up here?" And she's meditating, and she tells me to mind my own business and leave her alone. So I did it and let her just keep meditating. And then I went back into that kind of deep meditation with this thing. It's just tuning me in. And I don't know, it felt like maybe 5 minutes, and I get a break in this frequency, and I open up my eyes, and I see her looking at this thing and kind of freaking out, you know. And I told her they've been there for a long time. And they takes off. It seems to be, it takes off around the back of us, and suddenly kind of we're standing out of the car watching 2 of them. Okay, and that's when we realized, you know, we get back in and try to get away, there's like 4 hours are gone. Now, at first, I had very vivid, I could see things, you know what I mean, that I could see that I was somewhere physically, and I could maintain, like, certain structures of the ship and things I could see, but it was fragmented. And that was very disconcerting. That would be the first time. And fortunately, that type of delusion is not shared if someone else is there, so that helped me to know that I didn't have, like, these delusions. Because when I was a child, I had asked for those encounters, especially the last one with Xandar, which I was in 6th grade, that I knew it was real. Right. I had said, this has to be more tangible so I can prove it to people. Right. And I asked a lot, and I tried to actually initiate the contacts myself, and then they kind of stopped. You know, it happens when they want.
Right. Of course, yeah. Of course. Now, with her, where was she mentally in all of this? Was she accepting this? Did she think she was, you know, going through some psychotic craziness, and this was her imagination, and you were at fault? You know, what was going on at that moment? It had to have been pretty heavy.
Yeah. I mean, there was and I kind of call this a phenomenon that goes along with the contactees. It's like a wave, And there's like a certain elation that you have after the contact. You know, you're really just kind of hyped, and you seem to have almost heightened awareness. And then that kind of fades away to a certain degree, and you kind of go through this melancholy, and you just are out of energy for a little while. That's
Sure.
kind of like a wave, I call it. But she was accepting of the first two encounters, and then the third she didn't like.
Okay, we'll get to the third one in a second. Yeah. So okay. So now, and this is outside of Wichita, right? Where you guys are.
Yes.
Now, does she get out of the car? You have a craft in back, craft in front. Does she get out of the car? Do you get out of the car? What happens next?
No, I do not recall getting out of the car.
Right.
So we're standing outside of the car, and we're looking up at this thing, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I must just be tripping out. Surely this has got to be the sheriff and the helicopters done put a searchlight on us because we're,
right.
Actually they're freaking out on meditation, breathing too hard or something.
Right.
But it wasn't. It was one of these crafts. I mean, it was undistinguishable when you see it there, you know.
And so she's out of the car too, right?
Yes.
And she's looking up. Which craft is she looking at? Is she making a contact?
Yes. At first she's saying, she says, because it's just the one there at first, and she says, they want us to go up there, and this light is shining on us. And I was looking at her, I said, are you out of your mind? Get back in the car.
Right.
So I was trying to get back into the car, because all that is when something like that goes on. I mean, it gets really hard to accept at a certain point, and you're not sure exactly who's on board that craft. And then that's when it began to move over. Another one showed up that looked more like a golden ball, and it was emitting like a light, and she seemed to be entranced by that one. And then that's when I saw the other one do that morphing into a different form that I showed you during the presentation.
So they are communicating with her.
Yes.
Right? Now,
yes.
Okay, so what happens next? Or should I say, how does this end?
Which time?
Yeah, exactly. No, we're on the first one. This first event. What happens next, or how does it end, Barry?
It ends with us actually getting back in the car after watching. I watched this ship morph into what appeared to be crystals. Commonly, people are calling Merkabahs now, but it was almost like a molecule, the way it looked. And then as she sees hers, they're like done. They leave, and we get in the car and start going back home, and we, talking like all this incredibly heavy information, and it would typically what people call a download. But then the closer we're 15 minutes outside of town, by the time we get back, it's like we can't remember things, not fully what happened. It's like even the memories of that started fading, and that's some of the things I found disconcerting there. But what it led to answer your question, was us wanting to actually try to initiate this contact again. So it wound up we going out there again and again, trying to meditate and initiate this, and it wouldn't happen unless it just wasn't like that.
Now, did this craft look like the craft that you and your mom saw?
No, this one was different. It was still a saucer. This one was a bit bigger, and underneath it, it had these metal-looking balls. I call them gyro balls, gyrospheres.
Right.
They're kind of these big balls, and then it has it's a little bigger, and on the top of it, it has this light, this directional emitter is what I call it. So it looks slightly different in size and a little more metal looking.
Now, how many balls were there?
4.
There were 4. In all of the classic Adamski pictures, there were always 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you saw 4.
Yes.
Yeah, very interesting. That's was there anything else distinguishable underneath the craft?
Yeah, there's a little port right on the side of one of those balls, to where when I was being levitated into it, it seemed like I was coming in very fast, first of all, towards the ball, but then the door opened up, just kind of sucked me in. And, that feeling probably feels it feels slightly organic, I would imagine, when you actually go into one of those craft, which may have something to do kind of similar to when someone comes through the birth canal, for all I know.
So, somebody just posted, Olivia just posted, does Barry know that Norman Connors wrote the song Starship based on his sighting?
No, I did not.
Oh, there you go. All right. Well, now you know. Write that down, Norman. I'm going to go check it out. Okay. So that was number one. What was the next contact? What was contact number two?
After, I don't know, at least over a year and something, we had tried to initiate. It didn't happen. And then one night we were actually at my old job, and she'd come to get me, and we had this feeling, this kind of build-up feeling, and kind of seeing like a lot of light around each other. And she just says, I think we should go out there. I think something will happen. So we did. We went out there, and before it was on the way out there, we started seeing a craft. Now, I was driving, so I couldn't get a really good look at this one to tell you exactly what it looked like. Besides, it seemed to be maybe a little more cigar-shaped at times, and then it was pulsing like a plasma, a red, a yellow, and like an orange. And that's but I couldn't see it because conveniently deer were jumping out. This is a country road, jumping out in the road. And that made me look closer into how many people have seen deer before a contact experience.
Right. And what happens next? Did you see it land? Did you get close to it?
No, we pulled up out there. It's this sacred spot, so to speak, and the ship is gone. And I was really disappointed. So what happened to it? And at this time, though, what really caught my attention is that there is absolutely an enormous amount of fireflies flying around in the sky, or flying around in the area. And when I say that, I mean literally hundreds and hundreds, maybe 1,000 flying. It was tons of them. But the males are the one that fly more. The females don't fly as good and tend to climb up in the trees and kind of just hang there. So what we've got is all these males flying around, and in the trees actually pulsating. All the trees out there are pulsating, light pulses. And it's not. And I started telling her, I said, well, maybe this is a firefly thing. And then we start feeling a ship around us. And she's looking at me, and she said, did something just happen? And I said, I think so. And then we feel it again, and then we're kind of just sitting there again. And a bunch of time is gone.
Right. How much? How much?
4 hours.
4 hours.
I would say each time, really honestly, it's like right around 4.3 hours. Each time. It's just a little over 4 hours.
So this is a really cool experience, not only for you, but for me to listen to it and for the audience. So help me understand this. You guys are sitting there, you're talking, and then was it like a zzz, and then it's 4 hours later, and you guys are like, man, are you tripping? Are you tripping? Did something just happen? Was it like that?
Yeah, it was like that. And I can tell you what the sound was like. I think they call it a bull war. Like the doggone tribe, the elder will once a year he gets on that rock and swings that device. I think it's called a bull roar.
Right.
And it makes this woo woo woo.
That's
woo,
right.
Woo, woo. It's
right.
a very deep bass that like penetrates into, and it led me kind of dealing with what the ancient Hindus and actually James Gillian out here too talks about it too.
Right.
Pure conscious craft.
Right.
That are craft that we talk about what maybe we can become as life forms when we start inhabiting other life forms inhabit us and things like that. But it felt like a pure conscious craft. But the missing time was disturbing nonetheless, and even though the vibration was good and everything, but there was a lot of missing time there.
Now, we're going to take a break right here. But, Barry, I have to ask, we're going to come back and we're going to go to contact number 3. But where is she today, your girlfriend? Do you guys talk?
No, not very often, no. She turned her backs on those contacts very much. She was uncomfortable with it. So I've always respected her anonymity and never mentioned her actual name.
No, I'm not asking for that. No. But for her, it was the same real experiences that you were having. And you guys are continuing this because now you're 19 years old. This is a year later. Now you're having another contact experience with her, and these are real experiences. And so did you guys continue to talk about it? Like the next day, here you have this. What happened the next day?
The next day, we found that it's the same thing. We talked so much, and then we started losing memory really quick. again. And the next day we still had this elation feeling. And it was a feeling of very positive contact. But once again, wanting it to kind of happen again, but it didn't work that way. When it happened the next time, it was somewhat different.
Yeah, that was a bad experience. So, and we're going to do that right after the break. And now, when you guys, this 4-hour, this 4-hour thing that just went down, did you look at your, I'm pulling numbers out of the air, but you look at your watch at 6 o'clock, right? And you look at your watch and it's 10 o'clock. Is that the experience?
Yeah, like it's 12 and we get there, and then suddenly it's like 4:15 in the morning.
Wow.
4:20, 4:30, 4:40.
That's
somewhere around in there.
That's absolutely
insane. It's right there. I had a really nice stereo at that time, so I had a nice big electrical clock right there. And besides that, the sun's starting to come up, and at the age we were at, it wasn't that cool to come in the crib all times in the house, your parents' house at that age.
No, my daughters are 22, and they still can't do that, Barry. That's the way it is. Our guest tonight, Barry Littleton. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're going to go to encounter number 3 right after the break. Stay right there. Use the promo code F to drink coffee.
No. Too much stimulants don't do me very good. I'm like Peter Parker, man. If I drink a cup of that stuff,
you know what's...
I'm on the walls.
I should have brought some Fade to Black blend up at ECETI and left it behind. It's absolutely amazing. But the reason, the sound that the emitter was making, when you talk about the Dogan and the that thing on the string that they swing in the air to make that sound. It almost, and I know that you're hanging out with Lorcan up there. That woo woo woo, that Bigfoot made up there for him. I'm wondering if that emitter is doing the same sound. What do you think?
Quite possibly. It's this deep bass hum, and I've heard a lot of the equipment make it that they have that kind of you feel it, like inside. And I've also been told that some of those engines that sound like that also can heal human flesh as well.
Now
there's a healing factor involved also.
Yeah, it feels similar, and I'm just wondering if there is a connection. And we'll find out one day for sure. Let's go to encounter number 3. Things start to kick off a little bit for you now. What happens?
Well, honestly, we both became somewhat obsessed on that, but I had become obsessed with the work of Wilhelm Reich and Trevor Constable, and they were making those cloud busters and things. So I was making several of those and using them to combust clouds, and they're actually very easy to make. They're not like some of the things we see now. It's just a metal box and a wood box layered with tubing that goes into a water well. But anyway, I had been using that to actually deal with life energy because I knew, due to the engines I'd seen, that this had something to do with this technology they were using. So I was trying to see what all it could do with our environment. And one night her parents had moved, and I moved out of the state, and she was one of the last in their house, and they hadn't pulled down their trampoline yet. So we went back on the trampoline. We're back there meditating. And during this time, a cloud comes up from the trees, from over the side of the yard over there,
right,
and starts circling us. Okay, and to be honest, I thought it was maybe my great knowledge of orgone energy and the fact that I've been dealing with these machines that somehow I was manifesting this cloud. That's not what it was, but hey.
Right. Of course, you're searching for answers, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense. How old were you for the third encounter?
I'd say we're about 21 at this point.
21. So we've got 18, 19, and now 21. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this is the last time we were stopped before we stopped hanging out. But yeah, so this cloud, at this point, sometimes you can see what seems like stars shooting in and out of it or something like that, and then it retracts back the way it comes in the yard. And we kind of laid there for a minute, and she started kind of crying, saying it was the most spiritual experience she'd ever had. And I was like, how could you say that after the other stuff we've been through? But when we get up off of the trampoline, only our butts are kind of wet as we slide off of it, but we're completely dry, and it has rained everywhere. Even the trampoline is wet, but we're bone dry.
Right.
And at that point, like kind of like the second experience, I could see like some technology and some beings in my mind's eye after this experience, like the way you would is when you're physically somewhere.
Right. Right.
So this, but that, and and later on, I found out later. Interestingly enough, she had actually drawn a picture of Xandar, but she's an artist, and that had nothing to do with the encounter that we had that time. So where her encounters began and end, I still don't know. Anyway, but when I actually had to find out with this missing time, we got off the trampoline. There's another 4.5 hours gone.
Unreal.
So that was that was the third time with her. So that's pushing almost 18 hours there.
Did she have any
12
memories?
12.5 hours.
Yeah, did she have any memories of any of these, what went down during these 4 hours?
Sometimes she would say certain things, and like she seemed just so uncomfortable with everything. But sometimes she would say certain things that she seemed to have a knowledge of concerning the beings and information that they were departing to her.
Like what?
But as far as I think about genetic heritage, maybe she was from another country, so it was from Israel, so it's maybe another thing going on for her as far as contact goes. I think that a lot of this is connected to our genetics as well.
Yeah, of course it is. There's no question about that. Did she have any knowledge? Did she say that if she was on one of the craft?
She never did, with the exception of after the second encounter, we were talking all this knowledge before we started forgetting, and she had said she had been on there, and because I remember looking at her and saying, "Man, they were telling us that we're space people," and she looks at us. She looks at me, yes, and then we start talking all this, and I started trying to get us back to town without killing us in that car, because we've got to get to pen and paper or to a recorder before we start forgetting this stuff.
Right.
And in the end, by the time we get to town, we're still looking at each other with partial memories again. But giving it be that she had drawn Xandar, that was probably an encounter, separate of mine. I'm sure she had memory of being on at least some of them, and probably wasn't comfortable telling me.
Let's go to encounter number 4.
Well, the thing about that one, I was alone that time, so I had no one else there to prove that I was. But what that was is some of these practices, I had been really trying to delve deeply into communicating and merging with our Creator on the love frequency. That's kind of where I was at. And it started seeming at this point all these other things were just byproducts of that. But I had actually was out running and jogging or something. I got home and I started meditating, and when something occurred called inductive linkage, which is where your pineal gland begins vibrating so hard that it feels like it's going to emerge from your skull almost. This happens, and then I begin feeling energy and getting communication, telepathic communication. And when they come in, a lot of times it is so strong that you can't almost get out of it. You can't almost turn it off.
Right.
So this happens there, and I'm come to find out, but this is a physical deal. I'm conscious, and I'm getting a lot of information from these beings, and they appear to be non-physical. I can see them as light in my mind's eye, okay, but I can feel on my arm something that like static electricity. It's all around me, and I'd say in some degree they had a type of insectoid feeling, and I don't know if that could also be because their vibration is so fast that it's kind of a buzzing, or they're actually all insectoid in nature, a large portion of them. I know Xandar is, but that doesn't mean they all are. Anyway, this was a physical encounter. And when I get done with this communication with these beings, suddenly there's all this time missing. Another like 4 hours, 4.5 hours. And this made no sense because I was sitting on this chair meditating. I was pretty much conscious during this whole experience with the knowledge they were giving me. But these were what I would consider to be my own personal guides, as in the physical ones that are always around me, that sometimes we can communicate with. And when I actually wanted to find out more about the missing time and got regressed, it turns out that actually, once again, I was bilocated. Like the first experience with my mother, you had me to
right.
talk about.
Right.
And I think that really mentions a lot, like how many people are listening to us right now that have been bilocated either in their dream state or physically while they're still conscious and been unaware of it. And something about that technology, when that happens, it makes the retaining memory of it hard. You know?
Yes, and what this first physical telepathic communication that you had with number 4, what were they telling you?
You know, I was asking a lot of questions. One of them would be, there was, I asked you who they are a lot and where they're from and where their location is. I've been criticized before for wasting too much time drilling my friends, as you would call them, of who they are, where they come from. Had to do it, man, because they could have been deceivers. You never know.
That's
Although
right.
it appeared to be all love and everything was positive, I couldn't take any chances. Some of these are partially inorganic beings. I mean, come on.
Wow.
But a lot of things they were telling me, like one specifically, like I asked, because at that time, I'm sure you remember this, there was an alien autopsy that had come out, and it was supposedly real. It looked like Roswell or something like that, and it was a being that was on a table that had what they call polydactyl, that is 6 fingers. And even Stan Winston said he thought it was real. They did a big special on it. Do you remember that?
Oh, I paid for that video. I ordered,
Really?
yeah, I ordered that from Tower Records or Tower Video. I forget what it cost me back in 1995, but videotapes were not cheap, right? And I paid like $50 for that thing on pre-order. But and I am reserving my comments right now. Okay, so yeah, the alien autopsy video comes out. Go ahead.
Well, hey, I'm not clowning at all because I thought it was real. I mean, that was a good one, especially when they pulled the lens off of it.
Yeah,
I thought that was real, you know. But then I asked them, I said, hey, is this you guys? You look like this? And Tella thought I could actually send them that image of that thing, pow. And, it's the closest I've felt to them laughing. And they said, no, that's not us, and that's not real.
Yeah.
That's what they told me. I was crushed. I kept thinking, outside, you guys lying to me? But they never had lied to me so far,
Oh, that's fantastic. So, okay, well, when I first saw it, I went, okay, this is bunko. I had a party at my house, right, to sit down and watch this video with a bunch of my friends. And we got about 10, 15 minutes into it, of the actual autopsy itself or whatever. And we almost trashed my condo. But for you, okay, so you saw it, you thought it was real, but they tell you that it's not real. Were you bummed out?
Well, a little bit, man, because there's so many deceptions going on. And another one, maybe it's a personal ego thing. I don't like getting had, and that was where people getting had, and a lot of us having contact trying to get, information, just like was at the conference here. Just people want answers.
Yeah, there's no question about that.
Yeah. So I was a little bit bummed by that, but by the same token, Jimmy, it made me want to know more because they were showing in like light form this time. And they were telling me, they said, actually it's easier for us to communicate with you like this than show up like ships. But that is a part of us, and you respond to that. So that, and then telling you that when I actually do the regression and find out I'm in front of these what called themselves Plegarian throne beings, and I showed you illustrations of that, all right? But that means my own guides were sent here to distract my physical body.
Right.
That was hard to accept also.
Right.
Not that it was bad. I think it's just necessary because we can be bilocated in that way.
And now back to this bilocation that we addressed at the beginning, the aspect of this missing time, we're going to get into the regression now, but so you have two versions of yourself that are going down now, right? You have the bilocation, and you can only have one real memory. That's why it's missing time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yes, I would say yes, definitely, because for me it was a physical experience. These beings were in my field of perception, and I could feel them, and they're communicating with me. And I had no idea that actually when I'm sitting there having to have meditation separate, they had actually separated part of my astral dream body and are working with that. And I'll tell you why. I know why they do that. Because if you're the idiot like me, demanding physical encounters like I did, and then when they happen, we're dealing with some of these ships, Jimmy, and the outside and inside are not in the same dimension. The one we're seeing floating like out here to SETI or wherever, that's third dimensional, the outside. But then you get on the inside, you have multidimensional beings in there. You have rooms that are moving around you, rooms that are bigger on the inside than that ship is, period. It's very disconcerting. And I started suffering on there for this physical illness I was feeling on these crafts, and I call it temporal aphasia is what they actually called it. And they said that's caused by temporal distortion between the dimensions of that ship. So for us physically, it's hard to be there. And I'll tell you, even at that age, I couldn't have survived all that long there. So that kind of says something about it. But the dream body does not still pertain to the same physical laws as these bodies do. That's right. A whole other realm there.
That's right. And after you got through with number 4, for you, what were your life choices at that point? Now you're 20. How old are you at encounter number 4?
I'm getting around about 24.
Now, are you through with college at this point?
Yeah, I just got done, actually.
Now,
well, actually, it took me an extra semester, so it's towards the end of it, though. I had maybe a semester to go.
And what about your friends in college? Were you sharing these experiences with your friends, or were you keeping everything to yourself?
Oh, I wasn't telling anybody. I'm telling my friend Paul Adams, probably one of my best friends, and my friend Larry. Those are only 2 people I told. Otherwise than that, no. I mean, it was much easier just to party and try to blend in. You know what I mean?
Were they buying what you were selling?
That I was not having encounters? For the most part. You know, sometimes things would come up and weird things that, things are fine until somebody sees something or they have a metaphysical thing happen. Then they start talking to the one person they know that does talk that is weird until that happens,
So hey, that's how it goes, right? That's how it goes. Yeah. That's life. You needed to get those answers. You wanted to go back and find out about this missing time. You knew that you were having this communication. You had the awake experience. Now this is conscious. Now this is physical. This is real. This isn't some dream meditative state where it could be something else. Now you go and choose to go and find answers. Who did you turn to first?
At first I tried to get them myself. I tried everything. I really started studying deep into pranayama yoga and just the retention of the breath. I mean, I looked into Ekankar. I tried to astral project. I got a couple of certifications in hypnosis trying to self-hypnotize myself to retrieve these lost memories. And, the thing is, because I could see certain things, very definitive things from each encounter I could see. You know what I mean? But I couldn't get, there's just so much missing, though. It was still fragmented. So I kept thinking that I wanted to... Hello?
Yep, I'm here.
You hear that?
Yeah, I did. I thought that was you.
No.
They're messing with us, bro. There it
is again.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't keep going here. They're not going to... So far, I haven't had many problems like that, so we'll hope we... I'm sorry. Where are we at?
You were searching for yourself. You were looking for your own answers.
Yeah, in that way, I wanted to say I was Mr. Conscious Experiencer, because I heard so many other people that, had no memories almost of their encounters. Everything was wiped, and but I want to say that didn't happen to me. They definitely felt like positive encounters. They helped my life except for dealing with other people. You know what I mean? But
yep.
So that way I started thinking, but I didn't want to take a regression or get hypnotized, because there is a stigma out there that tells us, oh, whatever happens, don't get hypnotized. And I hear that being pushed by people now. Oh, don't do that. Whatever happens, don't get hypnotized for the missing time of your own encounter. And I'm sorry, but who in the heck are any of these people to tell you not to experiment with your own consciousness? What?
Right.
That's part of the disconnect we were talking about.
But
anyway, so the next step for this was, and since I could get some of the memories a little more clear with all the techniques and the practices I was doing, but the bottom line, I had to find a hypnotist and lay on a chair, lay down and get actually regressed professionally. And it took sometimes, 35 minutes to get me under. I'm one of those people.
Right.
So so I always will push and for people to really seek maybe hypnosis if they're missing time. And the most important thing is learn a little bit about it, find a qualified hypnotist, and check their credentials and meet with them a few times before you exchange any monetary. That way it builds a rapport that they can probably induce you deep, and you can actually get it recorded and get some of the answers you need, because your subconscious has seen everything and recorded it, and so is your superconsciousness.
Well, plus you don't want to be led.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
you don't want to have anything suggested. You need to. I'm in fear of the same things that you're talking about here. I don't know if I could handle being regressed, and there's that all of those stigmas are attached to it that you're referring to here. But you found that person. I don't know if you want to name them here, but you did get regressed.
Yes. Oh, sure. She's good. She actually does it by Skype. I never had a Skype regression, but she does those also. So.
And okay, so now be straight with me, Barry. You listen to the first session; it plays back. Do you trip?
Trip? Oh, yeah. They were. I mean, yeah. They. I mean, it's always the point that when you go into one of that, just maybe you spaced out for a minute,
right? And
what you remember is just valid, and that's where it is,
right?
And then you find out, no, it's not. That you're dealing with beings that can bend the space-time continuum. 4 hours here may very well be weeks there. Yep. That helps,
man. I mean,
I tripped out. Yeah. And that's the fourth one I had done. I was especially wanting names of these beings, and. What winds up happening, I start seeing things about creation, and these beings start speaking through me to the hypnotist. And I'm not one of those that channels and does that. Okay, I'm not leading my bodies to other inorganic beings.
Right.
But these beings are of a high level that they can, but they've never done that. And it really took a minute for me to accept that. That's how I became friends with Peter Maxwell Slattery. He had just posted his regression, and they were talking through him to Mary Rodwell, and he was. It's hard to accept sometimes, to hear yourself talking like that, especially when it's something so heavy that it just didn't come from me.
Now, and help me understand something, because you had 18 hours of missing time. How many regression sessions did you do to go back and recover those 18 hours?
I did a total of 6.
Oh man!
And one of them, honestly, was for my time out here at ESETI, the last time I was here. I got that done a few weeks ago. The others were for those encounters. And, what's cool is I could actually make it specific. I had targeted times I'm trying to find out information for. So that makes less time to be misled when you're being induced.
Right.
You know what I mean? Actually, the hypnotist can actually follow what you're trying to find out. But, and to be honest with you, one of the sessions, one of the earlier ones I did, the earliest ones, I strictly wanted to see if I had been exposed to what I call virtual reality scenario technology.
Right.
And I wanted to know that, and wanted to know if I had any screen memories. Although the encounters that I could remember and everything was positive and felt good and everything, I had to make sure, what if I was being tricked? Because I hear so many things in the media, we hear about people like that, and it's not for me to judge anybody else's experience, because there's a lot of people having negative ones, but I wasn't one of them. I'm going to make an observation here and take this the right way, right? Don't take it the wrong way. But white people, I think, are gullible. Okay? Just, you know what? And they just want to believe. It sounds to me, and do you think that is because, that you're black, that you wanted to make sure that there was no BS going down here, that you had your guard up? I'm being straight here, man. I'm telling you that some people just want to believe, and they aren't going to take those precautions. But I've never heard, you are being very adamant about the way that you were approaching this. Do you think that is because you don't trust, right? Yeah, that too, Jimmy. But I mean, just looking at the world around us, I mean, the ones here in human form are very treacherous, and you just can't take any. I couldn't take any chances, even though it felt positive. I wanted to make sure, and then go forward with the relationship with them after that, especially when I would ask questions like, hey, where are you guys from? And they'd say things I didn't understand, things that almost sound like Star Trek now.
Right.
Sector 188, beyond the exospace-time continuum. What the heck does that mean? But you know what I would ask them? They tell me you won't understand yet.
Right.
And they were right, I didn't. I said, well, I thought I was really intelligent, so I said, tell me anyway. And then when they did, I didn't understand.
Oh, that is hilarious.
But that's just kind of the nature of it. But I would say, yes, very guarded. And that's because also, being melanin dominant especially, and I don't see, no one talks about black extraterrestrials, black contactees aren't really well known, so that's additional stress. Additional disconnect is what that added. So I'm hoping that maybe, that now I'm hearing so many more people coming forward of all different cultures. It's wonderful. So I think things are changing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're gonna take a break right here. And now, as I'm warming up the music here, did you, when you were on the ships in your regression, when you were seeing other contactees, did you see other ethnic backgrounds, other cultures? Did you see Asian or American Indian or a black? Did you see a wide variety of humans being represented?
I only saw 4 in one experience, and I saw 3 that were like kind of in dream body. I'd say 2 of them were one appeared to be kind of Native American. One was a red hair, and the others were Caucasian people. 2 of them actually have entered my third world life. I've met them here.
Okay. Well,
that really, that was kind of blew me away.
We'll talk about that when we come back. Our guest tonight, Barry Littleton. What a conversation tonight. Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Barry Littleton. What a conversation. And I have the feeling, Barry, we're going to keep you over for a little bit of overtime tonight, so I hope you're awake, and maybe we'll do a few extra minutes. We have so much to cover here. Now, what I would like to do is I've got 2 other images that you've given us tonight, and I want to get both of these posted up now, and because we're going to talk about the ships and who you are now encountering face to face, and you're able to do that and represent it in these illustrations. Who did the illustrations for you, by the way?
Christine Dennett. She goes by Casara also. Very, very kind woman that has done probably 30 sketches for me. Yeah,
very talented. So let's get both of these up now. And the first one is, you say that Kiara?
Mana?
Casara.
Casara, Kesara.
Right.
You can reach at Casara.org, actually.
Okay, and the one with, I don't want to share your story. I don't want to use your words, but it's the one with the little blue guy, the being with the exposed brain. That's the way that you described it. Those are my words. But with the spinning crystals in the background. Okay, so let's get that one posted, and then the other one is what's the being's name with the exposed brain?
Mana. M-A-A-N-A.
Okay, there you go. So let's get these up so everybody can have a frame of reference on who we're talking about and what's going on next. Okay, so let's do... I don't have an illustration of this, but you go into a room with... you have a few different... you're exposed to a black box on a couple of different levels here. So what is the black box and the first room, which you describe as very, very large, by the way?
Yes, I call it the anti-gravity room, oddly. The black box in that one, as well as in the other engine I've seen, they said was an inertial dampener. And that it's used for is to actually draw like prana or orgone energy from water. So sometimes you'll see a UFO or USO hovering over a body of water. They're actually drawing that orgone energy up, and that black box is a part of that. And then what it does, to my knowledge, as they're kind of showing me explain it, is it releases an anti-gravity field around the skin of the ship. And they do that just before they make like a frequency jump into like another dimension, or a frequency jump that looks like they're almost going into light speed. So yeah, that's kind of what you're dealing with there. As far as I know now, there's been other things about the black box that other contactees have seen that it's connected to what's called tube technology or resurrection technology. And I wanted to know if those that I've seen were connected to that, but I'm pretty sure that they weren't. I don't think there was a life force in there of that type as a soul. I think they're taking it more from water.
There was okay. As you describe the room with the black box, there was something else that floored me. I mean, really, really. I've never heard this before. But you talk about spores. You talk about textures and surfaces. Go ahead. I'm going to hand this right to you. Describe that for everybody.
Okay, the inside, especially, I think you're referring to especially the first adult set ship, the texture of the inside of it was very much like a mushroom or some type of a light fungus. When I say that, where I come from, we call a lot of the mushrooms around here toadstools, but they have a certain texture on the outside of them, even a look. And the inside of this was very similar. Even touching it, it's a little harder than the average toadstool you might touch, but a little harder, but it looks the same, and you can feel it's alive. That's when I knew that this ship was organic, and that's the reason why I couldn't just walk around and normally find windows on them, because they're organisms. And what we've got is a combination. Okay, we've got a genetic material from some of these beings, like mana, for example. We've got some type of a spore, some type of mushroom spore, and then also we've got certain metals that are mined from planets that are devoid of Van Allen belt and of atmospheres. The metals on those type of worlds are actually bombarded by cosmic rays in a way that we are unknown on Earth. So the resilience is much more. So these are all this compound is just grown in deep space over a micro wormhole, over most likely a micro wormhole. Okay, or black hole, whatever you want to call it. So that makes actually the engine itself, like especially the one I show with the column, the polarized one.
Yes.
I mean, it's built over a black hole itself. That's why when you have a lot of experiencers, whether in dream body or physical body, they say they touch that light coming off those engines, and suddenly they see the Akashic records because it's giving them access to it. But it's because they're seeing that and they're touching it and going into that wormhole that's part of that engine. Another reason that they call it, they refer to it being temporally displaced. So being around those engines usually made me sick. And the black being, or the black box you're referring to, Jimmy, it was very big. And when I look up, it's like at a 45-degree angle. So when I look up at it, I start getting real dizzy. You know what I mean? And that's what they're saying, it's temporally displaced. And I'm not a mathematician, so I can't tell you much about that. But that's how they, explained it.
And the first room, the anti-gravity room that you were in with the black box, there was, it looked to me, even though you didn't really describe it this way, but it felt almost like an examination room. And I don't want to go all Travis Walton or go that way. And I appreciate your laughing, but there were also... it looked to me like an X-ray machine or an MRI machine, which you had experiences later with, and I want to talk about that right now. Was it a medical room, and was this also fuzzy with the spore material, the mushroom walls? It's hard to explain, everybody, but imagine the texture, the leathery, fuzzy texture of a mushroom. That was the construction of the ship. And was it the same in this medical room? And I don't even think I don't know if it was medical. I'm asking you if it was that way.
Yeah. Well, it was the first room that I came into when I talked about that door on the outside of that ship by the gyro ball.
Right.
That was the first room I came into. And it was big like a cargo bay. And I kept saying it seemed like almost a cargo bay, except for these two devices over there. And one of them was the blue column of light that had the blue light, and I blue like plasma in it. And and actually the light that actually levitated me to the craft was blue also. And I think that's got something to do with decontamination, because they had implied to me I'm getting off of it. I kept getting like plutonium, magnesium, copper, augmented with water. But I couldn't understand that because plutonium I thought was gray. When I look at chemistry, I see that plutonium can sometimes turn blue when it decays with water.
Right.
So I'm thinking that actually that's got something to do with the decontamination. But that led me to asking also, like, white experiencers, what color of light had floated them in. Because I listen to certain people, the ones that say the purple colors. I understand the violet is really used from decontaminations of nano and all that kind of stuff. And that black people, normal experiencers, we didn't have that due to our melanin, and we didn't have the same, perhaps, biological agents on us or nano that white experiencers do. I just wanted to know. You have to ask these questions. I'm coming to find out when I look at the blue light that took me in, that may not be correct. I think there was a decontamination factor to that light also.
And the screens, the screens that were in that room, there were certain liberties that were taken to show an X-ray type of thing, but you didn't see, because this will be out in your book too as well with these illustrations, you didn't see anything physical on these screens like they were an MRI or a CAT scan or an X-ray type of machine, right? Am I understanding?
Jimmy, which windows are you referring to in the other experience?
Yeah, the blue beam room, the anti-gravity room. There were no windows in there. I got sucked into that port. It's just a port, like a door that opened up on the side of it and sucked me up into it. But there were actually no windows in there. It was all that mushroom type of walls, and there were like these kind of look like almost blue fiber optics in there a little bit within the wall. Right.
But then there was the column and then the black box. But outside of that, nothing else was in there. There were no windows or anything like that in there.
Now, you talked to James Gilliland. You had an MRI done on your tooth. Do you know where I'm going right now?
Wow. Yeah.
Okay. You had an MRI done on your tooth. And you talked about the possibility of beings that were coming out of the MRI machine, possibly because of its magnetic field. And then the technician said something. Tell me, what happened?
I had heard that a long time ago on actually Art Bell. People started calling in MRI technicians saying that they had seen entities coming out of the machines. And a lot of them called in just one night. And so I was always been curious about that. Now, this lady's a nice gal at the clinic there. She did my MRI. And I asked her, I said, it spun me around in there. I said, oh, you're doing one of these. I've heard a lot about entities coming out of these, even X-ray machines like this, and especially MRIs. And her eyes just got big. She turned back around. She goes, where'd you hear that? I was like, I just hear some things. And she starts telling me. She said, I used to work in MRI, and now I do these. She said, yes. And the entities that we have seen coming out of these are different. The ones that come out of the X-ray machines are different than the ones that seem to be around the MRIs. The ones where the MRIs can sometimes take humanoid forms. They've been knowing to follow technicians home. Yeah, very interesting thing she said. And it was really, and the doctor had come in to tell me I have to get my wisdom tooth removed. It was great. But she said, what are you two talking about? And when we told her, she goes, I just got an MRI. And she was saying also the most interesting thing is that several technicians that had no belief in the paranormal said that these entities were following them home that were coming out of the MRI.
Oh, man.
I found that just fascinating. And, it's one thing to hear rumor, but when you talk to somebody who actually works with this equipment.
Right. I need an MRI done now. I've got to.
Oh, man, you're messing with me.
See, this is what's funny. I had some MRIs done about 5 years ago and got in a car accident. No big deal, but I had to get a bunch of stuff done. Had I known I would, you know me, man. You know me. I would have been in there just asking all of those questions. That's fascinating to me. Okay, so back.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Okay, back to let's get back to what you were seeing on the ships. Let's go to Kevin Sorbo and Fabio, and now there's three Kevin Sorbos looking out this window, which you think I'm doing this for the audience, okay? But Barry, your laugh is worth its weight in gold. But okay, so you're looking at three cloned Nordic type handsome Kevin Sorbos. They're there, and they're all looking out the window, which you think is a window. Now, you are there, but you are looking out the window with them. What is it that you see at this moment?
Okay, at first when I was in the room, when I first got in there, or materialized in there, however they did it, it appeared to be a metal wall, Jimmy. And you notice in that picture, one of them was standing up, and that's Alex. But it was a metal wall there, and he kind of waved his hand, and this went boom, and it turned into it was transparent. And when I say that, it was transparent, almost past by where I was standing. So half of the floor was transparent also.
Right.
And I could just see directly through it. And I could see down there, it almost felt like it was going to fall through. I could see my mother and me down in the mall down there. And I see now why I was having trouble remembering it, because my other self, I was thinking about a Stretch Armstrong. I wanted another toy. I looked at that thing a little bit, and I was kicking dirt. You know what I mean? I was ready to go back to it wasn't that important, not compared to the toy. So it kind of says something about the bilocation process and the feelings, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
But I'd say when I saw that, and the way it appeared to be, I would say it was almost a holographic recorder. So that leads me to say that these gentlemen were historians.
And possibly a lot of the ships that we are seeing could be just that. Right? Mm-hmm. Historians on these ships, not necessarily. Now, this is the question that I've always wanted to ask you, and I held it off for this show. Do you think that there's the possibility of, I know you have other information, but do you think that there's a possibility that they are us? Could these be time travelers? Could these be us from the future coming back here as historians?
I would say absolutely yes. And the very interesting thing during that regression, when I saw these gentlemen, I'm saying constantly the hypnotist, George Adminsky, I'm talking about his contacts. And I didn't know much, I don't know much about his contacts. I didn't. I just know he said that he was messing with these dudes that came from Venus. All right, so I started looking more deep into his contacts. And then I see one of the ships that they have that does look somewhat similar, not exact, but it looks like one of the ships I've seen. But even more importantly, there's many illustrations he made himself that are of these Venetians having on blue suits.
Not a coincidence. Not a coincidence.
Slightly different blue suit than the one that Alex Nim had on. That had this metal bar on the front and back, but nonetheless, they're that. And I don't know. Since we already brought up the racial thing, I don't know much about Caucasian genetics, but I'm saying that Alex looked like he's maybe pushing, late 50s, 60s, mid-60s, but he looked great, good, in shape and everything, but his hair was kind of this silvery gray and almost pepper-like, and I'm wondering if he was younger, would he have been blonde? I don't know.
Interesting. Have you had a chance to sit down with Travis?
No, I've never met him. Hey, one thing I want to throw in real quick about George Adminsky. I was saying a lot that actually maybe that they're from Venus, but they're actually time travelers from the future when we actually branch out and we start terraforming other worlds. And that may say something to why those guys look like clones. Do they need the healing factor of like that?
Right.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to get that out.
Well, what you need to do, and I can arrange this, but you need to sit down with Travis privately. Nobody else around. You two just need to sit down and talk. because only you have your experience, and you haven't shared everything with us, and I don't expect you to have done that. And the same thing with Travis. I know that he's held back some private personal things. If you and Travis are able to sit down, there are ways that you can discuss privately what you saw, what you experienced that you haven't shared, to help you, the both of you. I know that you have gone and talked to other experiencers and you hear what they have to say, and only you can back up into your own mind's eye and go, no, you're not an experiencer, right?
Well, I tell you, I don't doubt him for a couple of reasons, Jimmy.
No,
one would definitely be. One would be he saw that humanoid, and I'll be darned, he may have had on a bubble thing, but he had on a blue suit, didn't he?
Yes.
And I've heard him saying other things like maybe that initially that being killed him, and that they actually saved his life. I think it's fascinating. Fascinating.
No, what I'm saying, that's not what I'm referring to. What I'm saying is that there are private things that only you and Travis know, and if you guys are together, you'll be able to just sit down and share those experiences with each other. That's what I'm referring to. But what I'm also saying is when you're out there, knowing what you have gone through and experienced, you have a BS meter. Do you know when somebody has not had a real experience and it's possibly imagination or maybe mental illness or what have you? Where you're able to just back off and go, well, nah, you wouldn't say that to them, but you would say that to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell often. I mean, and it's not just me. There's most real experiencers can tell. There's certain things that they will say that give away that they most likely haven't had contact. But I try not to judge other people's experiences, but when I start looking at the media a lot and seeing some of these people that have had these perfect contact experiences that are so much under skepticism, and it worries me that I see disinformation like that. I know you see it too.
Yeah, you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to call Travis. I think I'm going to bring you back, and I'm going to have you and Travis on the show together. That would be the barn burner.
Oh, wow, man.
That would be the barn burner. I'll call him right now.
That's a trip.
Call him right now. Yeah, Travis. Okay. Travis is amazing, and I can just imagine the two of you talking together because he's a very unique soul. And I do see that. Okay, now let's go back. Okay. Now, there was one other. You saw the huge power generator machine thing with the multi-levels. Now, I want you to tell everybody how big you think it was, because when you show the illustration and you go, now these are the different levels, we're standing on these different... I stepped back and said, okay, this thing is hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of feet big in both directions. How big was it? And describe this to everybody.
Okay, I would say that this thing was about the size of a small building, this ship. It had been. I mean, almost like something probably similar to, I don't know, maybe a skyscraper. The engine itself, the base of it, like where I was standing at first, it looked like a honeycomb, a spherical honeycomb, glowing with very much a golden light that they call angelic golden liquid energy. They call it that every time. All right, and it was emitting this gold, and around that are these, around this honeycomb, that just takes us in the honeycomb conjecture why bees actually make that form, the hexagon like that. But around that were these metal rings, so I call it a gyro sphere. And they were moving around this thing. So I think that's a magnetic containment, all right? And then this polarized this orgone, this life energy out of this honeycomb and polarized it going upwards like to a column. Something like, kind of like how on Star Trek, the way in like the Next Generation, the engine, you kind of have a middle piece like that. It goes boom, boom, boom. I mean, it kind of looked like that in that way that it went up several decks, like about 3 decks, up into this the top of this ship. This thing up there was another, but this one was really big, a huge black box. But the most thing I want to try to say is that the column went up several decks straight up this column in the middle of this craft. and that's that living light. And it was on the second deck that when I got up there, I saw people up there in their dream bodies, because they're kind of phasing out. Some of those beings are not fully in phase in the third dimension, and these people look like that too, but they're touching the living light. They're going to the edge of that deck and touching the end of it.
How many different types of ET, of beings, were together at one time? Did you ever see together at the same time?
Yes. I've been on like one room that I called it the biodome. There's about 3 different types of beings in there. Specifically the bio bed, there were several in there also. And I think that in one instance, I've shown this ship, and there are these eggs on the ship, okay? And this is the same one that has the mushroom type of interior, but in certain rooms, in fact, all over that ship, there are these large eggs that look like almost like a type of fiberglass glass egg. And inside of there's more mist, this deep mist, and also these lights, different colored of lights. Some of them spears, some of them would appear to be different configurations of plasma. And I assumed at first these were power sources, okay? And this was some sort of power chamber. But I start noticing a lot that these other beings, especially the ones like Mana, some of them will be shorter, but they have that exposed brain. They'll be standing near these eggs, like looking at these eggs. And it wasn't until later I found out that actually these are non-corporeal life forms. I think command officers or something of that level. And, it takes us to another level, Jimmy, when we start thinking about what is it really like to be on a multidimensional ship that has different beings on it,
right?
Some that are non-corporeal. And these beings don't come out of, this is what they tell me, they don't come out of those eggs that much, because even the part of the ship that I can exist in as a third dimensional being is painful for them. And to come out down here on Earth is very dangerous. So they stay in those eggs, that's their natural environment much more. And which is odd, because you think that, but they're non-physical. But I don't think that matters. Whatever it is, they are consciously.
It's a fascinating concept that they don't need to do that. That they can control, they can think, they can communicate, but they don't need maybe physical fun or exercise. That's not. They are way beyond all of that, and now it's just about intelligence.
It's so cool to hear you say that. I'm going to tell you why. Now, you were here at SETI, and I'm sure several times, I heard you mention it once, you saw one of those lights going away that went a UFO. It almost looks like it's a ferry or something.
Right.
A real quick streak.
Right.
Now, I'll tell you, sometimes as a need of shore leave, sometimes I think these beings, I showed you another ship where it was these micro wormholes on this bridge, and a light being jumped in and jumped out.
Right.
But if they do that, they jump out here, and they're like going real fast. They burn out the guy, get out of here.
Right.
But by the same token, I was like, man, what am I seeing here when I see a lot of that? Because some of them do look like fairies. Am I watching command officers on one of these ships playing with like elementals from this planet?
Right.
And that's exactly what I was seeing. But they're all burning out so quick you don't know. So I think the need of fun goes all the way up to the highest vibration. A lot of those negative entities can't understand humor and fun. They have a problem with it. I think
when we come back, Barry, I got to take a break right here. I'm going to keep you for overtime. Are you cool for that? You cool for it?
Absolutely, Jimmy.
Okay,
Absolutely.
That's what I'm talking about. I want to discuss just that when we come back. Our guest tonight, Barry Littleton. And we're going to do a little overtime with Barry. I knew it was going to be like this. Too much information to get out there. Can't wait to have Barry back on the show. That's the whole point with all of this. Now, Barry, we've got Alex and the Kevin Sorbo clan. I got it. Just we've got Xandar, we've got Mana, and especially with Mana and Xandar too, could be a little bit intimidating or scary to someone to meet in person. You did. What was the attitude there? Was it love? Was it intelligence? Was there any negativity? And how did you handle that?
Xandar, the thing about him that I want to emphasize is that he wasn't a mantid, and what's often called the praying mantis type of being. He was smaller. He was about the size I was as a child, so maybe mid 4 feet tall, maybe. But he had human proportioned limbs, and to me, he looked very much like like a grasshopper, like a cross between a grasshopper and a locust with kind of a milky gray eyes. And the energy I got from him and the feeling, and being in his presence. The only thing that was maybe a bit intimidating is the ancient feeling very ancient and very knowledgeable.
Very
but
smart.
The amount of love and consciousness emanating from him was unreal.
Right.
Enough to where it nullified much of my fear automatically, because I want to know more. You know what I mean? Especially when you get that much information coming off of a being mentally, you try to absorb as much of it as you can.
Now, how about Mana? Very intimidating looking.
Mano's very tall. Interestingly enough, I thought at first maybe that being was male, but then a lot of people started saying, I feel that being's female, or somebody else that might have encountered him, so I think we're dealing with androgynous. About very tall, but not intimidating, because, once again, the love coming off of this being. And if you notice, she's got these circular blackish eyes, very, very kind when you look into them. And there's something about the optical nerves that I think that they're able to access fairly easy, but very calming. And just, if anything else, I probably just wanted even more information that she was willing to give each time, if that makes sense. I've taken, trying to find out more.
Right.
But very scientific feeling once again, and also felt much like a healer as well.
Now, was the skull translucent and you were able to see the brain through the skull, or was the brain actually like out in the open?
No, I say that, but honestly, what it looked much more to me, it looked like a cross between what we know on this planet as brain coral, how that looks hard like that. If anybody looks up brain coral, and also the aardvark, how aardvark is actually the hide of it is.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of looks similar, like a cross between that. But when I look at it, brain coral looked very much like the type of brain, and I say it's reversed just the way that the hard structure was on the outside. It looked very brain-like.
Now, I want to ask, because I know that you were asking questions. Now, these are the questions that I have for you that hopefully you asked. Okay? Food.
Go ahead.
Food. Did they eat? I look at Mana. I don't see a mouth or a nose. So,
go ahead. No.
Yeah, food. Did they eat?
Yeah, I never had asked that, and I never seen any of them eat. I didn't see mouths on several of the beings. What I do know is that they had some type of a symbiotic connection with the ship in a way that a lot of them didn't actually touch those controls, and it seemed like a fiber optic type of thing between the suits and them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that they may gain nourishment the same way the ship does, however that may be.
Wow.
It's orgone energy as far as I know.
Yeah.
So maybe they plug directly into that life energy. But I can't lie, Jimmy. I can't fully answer that question.
Smell. Did you smell anything?
Yeah, most of those rooms have the smell to me like a smell of ammonia or really literally Windex, the way Windex smells. But there's also a mist, like this thin grayish mist in a lot of those rooms. And that mist seems to be what contains that smell. Like, for example, that maturation chamber I showed you, where that Mother of the Hybrids was.
Right.
The mist in there was very thick, so thick that felt the temporal aphasia, as they call it,
right,
was even worse in that room, to where I was like about to pass out.
Did Mana have an odor? Did Xandar have an odor?
No, I smelled no odor off them. The only odor I ever smelled was actually that ship itself, that mist. But that ammonia smell is somewhat overpowering.
What about Kevin Sorbo? Did he axe
with the Knight Rider?
Yeah,
David Hasselhoff's cut.
Axe body spray, right?
I encountered him later. When I encountered him in the store, he was just a very clean-cut Caucasian gentleman.
Right.
He kind of reminded me of a teacher or a professor.
Right.
So he didn't stink any more than your professor would, you know what I mean? But it's the way that he felt. He just felt so advanced. You know what I mean? And the stuff he just was asking me. How did he know that?
Right.
That kind of a deal kind of took over.
And were they all of them, but certainly I keep saying Kevin Sorbo. That's your fault, bro. That is so your fault. But what about hygiene? Did they look like they showered and combed hair, and were they clean and
Alex was definitely clean cut. I mean, he was completely clean cut on that ship.
Right.
But when I saw him, not even a year later, he had a kind of a goatee.
That was
goatee.
Okay. You're reading my mind. That was unreal. What about that? Okay, so they did have facial hair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'll say this to you, Jimmy, and I call those beings, like I said, the charters, and I'm sure that the humanoid. The form is more than biology. And the reason why I say that, because I think they are from the future, because I swear to you, to me, each of these charters in humanoid form, they feel like they're people, but like maybe 1,000 years in the future if we don't destroy ourselves. They feel like that, and I say that because their energy kind of pushes you. Not like the way when you're around somebody that's got really bad ADHD, they're kind of erratic.
Right.
It's not that type of a feeling. This is more like an advanced push. But you're very aware of it, and you say, man, this person feels very sophisticated. And in the point, then when they start telepathically communicating with you, the second charter that actually the third one I met at 21, she was so strong that I could not block her out telepathically. And I tried. I put up the great shields we all put up, and it works, especially on normal people.
Right.
Jimmy, she crashed through my shields. And
Yeah, I don't like
anyway.
that. I don't like that whole telepathy thing, man, because you walk into a room and your private thoughts are everybody's thoughts, right? And also you are able to. There's no disguising now. Everybody in the room, you are able to see or hear what they are thinking. And that's you have no protection of who you are. Now, what about music? Was there any music?
No, I did not hear any music on those ships. You know, nothing beyond that basal type of vibration.
Right. So no music.
But you know, I will say this though. In this, that one of my brothers had certain contacts. He's not quite like me; they're different. But he's had one or two, and they have used music. He's a musician, and he'd be totally unaware that he was having the contact if they didn't use some type of music. So I think that it definitely can be used depending on what experiencer they're dealing with.
Artwork. Was there anything on the walls?
In one room, that bio bed, there was something on the wall that looked like these kind of screens. I don't want to say screens like electronic ones, almost like radar blips or something.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of similar to that, and they're on that illustration. But outside of that, I've seen control panels on some walls before. But mostly it seems like they're wired in by fiber optics to the crew and the uniforms they have on. Sense
of humor. Any jokes getting cracked?
Yeah, like the one I told you about the the autopsy. That's one, and I've felt a sense of humor with them quite a bit. I mean, it's not the same as ours, but I can tell that's what it is. You know, and it comes in. The telethought comes in so fast and so hard. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish everything.
Right.
But I felt emotions of humor and laughter. I mean, they're not up there laughing like we do, but I can feel it.
Do you think you could, now I want to move on to some of the information about where they were from, because you have a lot of info there, and that's interesting. But do you think you could take Mana or Xandar to Disneyland and ride a roller coaster? You know what I mean? Would they enjoy that kind of experience, or are they just beyond that?
I would say they're probably beyond that. But then again, I don't know. Because,
right.
Look, Xandar had time to come to play with me when I was a kid. So it's hard to say.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they're physical beings for the most part. I mean, Xandar was not phased out when I interact with him, and neither was Mana. These beings were corporeal like you and I.
Right.
So they could do, I would assume, certain things, you know?
Because you mentioned earlier, Xandar just jumped in the playground. Right? Mm-hmm. So it sounds like he's apt to a good time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and if it was important for him to stop the world being flooded by that stream as it was me, so.
Oh man, that's great. Now you talked about some logistics here, where you were asking where they were from, and you got into some planet system where you were trying to extract this information. What were you told? How did you handle it? And was it anything that you could digest?
The first one was Xandar. When I realized that he was on this ship, I was asking. I mean, even before I realized it was him that I was playing with, but he was on the ship. I asked where he was from, where that ship was from, and he starts saying things that you won't know. It's beyond exospace time, and then I start refining, try me. He said, well, start with the third and fourth planets outside of Pluto are bases on there. They're jumping spaces into your solar system. We have to do that sometimes because of the density. So, okay, I'm thinking of that, but as a kid, I say, okay, I asked, real quick thoughts, are you lying to me?
Right.
Because there are no planets outside of Pluto.
Right.
There wasn't then. They hadn't been. He said that.
Right.
It doesn't matter because you've not found them yet. You won't understand. He's telling me that always. So anyway, they found those now. They're known as trans-Neptunian objects. Okay, but that's years later, Jimmy. A decade something later, when those were found. So then he starts telling me 900 million light years, and that's a long way. So I start finding sectors until he comes to there's a place that we've discovered called the Abell galaxies, which are a lot of colliding galaxies that are about 900 million light years out. And the one I've been attracted to is Abell 2256. It's about 10,000 galaxies in that little area. And that's what's actually on that illustration. That's what's behind him, is Abell 2256.
Wow.
So that's one. And we've got Mana, who is amphibious, and telling me that she is from, they are from the multiverse, basically. Outside the E-space is what there was E-space, exospace-time continuum. So that's what we would call now the multiverse, the universe outside of our universe. And it did stun me a little bit because I'm thinking about, well, how the heck could there be an aquatic planet out there?
Right.
But, what do I understand?
No, you can't. But at least you were trying to figure it out. I mean, what could they really tell you that you would understand? Look at a big picture of the universe and they point at it and they go, we're from here. Well, I might understand that, but taking it to the next level, there's no way that you can understand it. It's so big and so vast that we don't even understand what's really out there outside of the Milky. We don't know, right? And so we're just discovering these exoplanets now, so they could tell you whatever, but you wouldn't have a clue. But if they pointed at a big picture, okay, maybe you could wrap your head around that. I find that just unbelievably fascinating. What did you ask them about religion? Did you ask them about death? Do they have souls? Do they die? How old? Were you able to go there?
As far as like the death process, they haven't said a whole lot about it. And it goes into especially when I try to ask about, like when I've asked about the future and what possible bad timelines we're on. They don't show me anything, and I think a part of it is that they don't truly know which timeline we're going to take, But they are very concerned about the Earth, and said that the Earth will not be. They sent me a picture, Jimmy, like a teletalk picture, and they said that this won't happen again. And they show me what appears the Earth going around our sun. It looks like an ash. So that something really bad has happened here before. I mean, it cycles before we talk about Anunnaki and this and that, cycles way before that, cycles before my own personal past life memories, which I think go back 10 million years.
Right.
And there's a lot that happened before that, cycles we don't know about what really happened to this planet. So when they say that won't happen again, but possibly humanity could extinguish itself. But they're not. So that's kind of telling me where they're coming from with the Earth. And I think that a lot of these beings may have been around as long as the Earth has been a matrix. And we're dealing with the interdimensional factor deeply here.
Now, all of them, Xandar and Mana and Kevin Sorbo, They're not from the same. They're not from the same planet, right? They're not. These are different planets, different parts of the universe, but they are together as a community now.
Yeah, they're this alliance, and yeah, they're definitely from different places. And most of the time, I've been never given names for a lot of these beings. Hasn't gone like that for some of them. But everyone I found has been different. This alliance contains Andromedan council members, or some the little blue guys call themselves.
Right.
You've got the Mana species. You've got Xandars, these type of different insectoids. I've encountered other insectoids, but they don't seem to have bodies. It's this energy on those ships some of them have. So, you've got the insectoid faction that is coming from all different, and we're dealing with like galaxies, not just planet sectors of areas of space like the Milky Way. We're outside the Milky Way on some of these beings.
Right.
In that way, I think that we don't address, we deal with certain places like the Pleiades and Sirius and things that we hear in the media, but these other 600 billion galaxies that have been found, we don't hear many about the beings that are coming from them. I found that interesting.
The idea that they using planets outside of Pluto as the connecting point, the stop off point, the truck stop to here in our own solar system, when we are just now discovering these planets out there in the Kuiper Belt, is mind blowing to me, and we didn't know that they existed until just recently. But yet you were told this before. What does that tell you about your own experience?
The validity of them, truly the validity of them. Because the first time that I saw Xandar actually on a ship floating,
right,
by one of these screens, I'm seeing other ships on the screen sucking up what looks like clouds into them over some mountainy, probably Rocky Mountains, I don't know, but it's huge. And I said, what are they doing? And he's like, we're trying to reverse, I was in 6th grade, we're trying to reverse the acid rain, but we're having problems even with our technology. It's very bad for your planet. I'd never heard of acid rain in the 6th grade. And then 2 weeks later, my teacher has me read a Scholastic News in front of everybody. People, it was my turn. And they're talking about why this Statue of Liberty was shut down for a couple months because they were repainting it due to the acid rain. That blew me away. That's when I knew for sure that this stuff was real. There's no doubt about it. It felt real, but when you get supporting factors in your daily life,
Mm-hmm. What? When was the last contact that you had?
Honestly, it was out here.
I knew it.
When I was forced to see that holographic mountain.
I knew it.
I've had encounters my whole life, Jimmy Church.
Yes.
And that pushed me to the edge of my knowledge on holographic principle, whatever you want to call it. I had to deal with that and come out here and deal with it again, thinking like, my Lord, I know that half of what I'm seeing out here is not what it appears to be.
I know.
It's really a trip.
What is it? We're at the end of the show, but thank you. If I don't get a chance to thank you before I run credits here, I want to thank you for this, and I look forward to many, many, many more conversations in the future, hanging out with you and breaking bread. But what the heck is going on at ESETI, man?
Hey, did you notice something while you were here? It happened to you, too. How many people put out intent and then something manifested? Some paranormal event manifested behind their intent with a whole group of people. You saw it.
Man, what is going on? That is a nutty, crazy, wonderful place, but it is real. ESETI's real. It is. It is. What is going on up there, man?
Just today, man, I accused James Gillian. I said, man, did you put a rock in front of my cabin? I've got a rock on my cabin floor again. I'm walking in there, sitting down there. I'm messing with all these people out there. Who's putting my rock down? And they're all swearing that they're not doing it. And things are getting real weird just before I leave.
That place, man. And I was going to, tonight I was going to share with everybody night number 2 there, which was Friday night during the Sky Watch. That 45-minute, 1 hour period where things were jumping off everywhere in the skies. That was a crazy night. You were out there for that, right? On Friday night?
Yes.
What the heck, man?
And you know,
it was like I was talking to Mike Barra earlier today, right? He calls me and he's like, I don't want to name drop. I'm sorry for that, everybody, but Mike did call and he goes, tell me about ESETI. And I said, dude, you know that scene in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? Where everything is flying across the sky and winking and lighting up the ground, and it was that. He goes, no way. I said, dude, it was nuts. And I don't know how to explain it, Barry, to everybody. And you know what? You were there. I was there. Rita was there. We had 150 people out there on that field. I don't care. It was our shared experience.
You know, it's worth mentioning, Jimmy, that you pointed out to me, actually, and everybody else, you kept talking about the sparkling you were seeing by what they say is the dimensional door.
Right.
I got another pair of binoculars from John, and I started looking at them then, and it definitely wasn't laser light, but I started tripping because I could not see that sparkling under the ice is what it looked like to me.
Right.
I could not see it with the naked eye, but every time I put the binoculars on, it's there. And it made me think, Lord, how many times is it doing that?
Right.
Is it constant? And
right.
You got to admit, when you saw that,
right.
Didn't those lights kind of look like a processor? When you used to see the processors on the old computers, like back in the 70s and 80s?
That's right.
The spools on
yes,
them?
Yes,
Kind of looked like that.
Yeah. And it was so bizarre to see that going on. What looked like to me, especially for there was a period there that it was doing it, it looked like it was underneath the snow, but this is what's weird. It was moving around. It wasn't.
Yes.
It wasn't in one specific spot. And then check this out, Barry. I don't know if you saw this, but there was a string. It happened, I think, twice, and it had to have been. If that mountain is 13,000 feet tall, then that string in the snow was a 5,000-foot string of lights underneath the snow, and it was red, blue, white, yellow, and it was like what's the word that like a fiber optic cable that was lighting up for 5,000 feet under the snow in a perfect straight line. Call me nuts, I don't care.
No, that's a good description. That's a really good description. And there's just no way. I mean, it was uncanny. I couldn't stop looking at it.
I know.
I mean, every time I come out here, there's something, the trippiest stuff out here. Every time. It's definitely what we call a power spot, man. It's got to be.
Man, I can't wait to get back up there. I'm jealous that you're still there. I want to thank you for this wonderful conversation tonight. But do me a favor. Tomorrow when you get up, go and see my boy Ramsey, the baby goat, and tell him Jimmy and Rita say hello. Will you do that for me?
You got it.
That's what I'm talking about, Barry. Say hello to everybody up there for us. Say hello to Ashley and Lori and Allison and James and of course, Lorcan. I know he's running around there somewhere too as well. Say hi to everybody and enjoy the rest of your night. Now go watch some UFOs, okay?
Thank you very much, Jimmy. I appreciate you and I appreciate your audience.
Thank you so much, Barry. Barry Littleton, everybody. What a great conversation. Still up there at ESETI. Right now, fully jealous. I got the feeling that Rita and I are going to jump on a plane and head out and go up there again this weekend. Amazing place, ESETI. Barry Littleton. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3.